Calling all authors. The Your Book, Your Voice podcast with host Robert A. Lane features everything you need to know about narrating your audiobook, but it doesn't stop there. We have special guests lined up from all aspects of the book publishing industry, and we also dive deep into what it takes to be mentally prepared for success as an author and in life. So please welcome your host, Robert A. Lane.
Hey, my friends, welcome to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I am Robert A. Lane. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. I am an audiobook coach and producer, and I specialize in helping nonfiction authors turn their fantastic book into an audiobook that they, as the author, narrate. Now, if you are a nonfiction author and you have a book that's published and it's not an audiobook form, you really need to get it into an audiobook. First of all, the audiobook world has been growing and expanding, just crazy over the last several years. So you definitely need to get into that market. But it's so important for you as the author to narrate your own book, because nobody on this planet can tell your story better than you. And I do have an audiobook coaching program, by the way, which is called Your Book, Your Voice. And it's a 6-week program where I take you from setup and preparation to narration to publication on the AAA, which is Audible, Amazon, and Apple. So if you are interested at all, you can always reach out to me and book a call, and we'd love to speak with you and get you enrolled. I just am super excited today because we have a fantastic guest for the show that is going to enlighten you in many ways, on many levels. So I'd like to welcome our very special guest, Walking Crow, and we're going to have such a great conversation. I know you as Walking Crow. I will always say Walking Crow more. You know what? It's funny. I feel more comfortable calling you Walking Crow than I do calling you Anthony.
Right. And I'm open to anything.
So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining and appreciate you spending time here. Now, Walking Crow is a shamanic healer, and we're going to get into what that means if you're not familiar with what that does encompass. Also, you're a life mentor. You are a drum maker, and you make these beautiful drums, which we're going to talk about that as well. Your sacred drum medicine, and you are a best-selling author, and you have this fantastic book, which is called Transformation of a Walking Crow. And this is just an incredible story that you've shared, and we're going to dive into that as well. And you're also a speaker, which is great. And I know you travel around the country speaking about what you do as a healer and making drums and just so many great things. Just where to start, right? So let's step back a little bit, Walking Crow. When and where did your shamanic journey start? How did you become this transformational shamanic healer? Was there a pivotal moment that happened in your life?
There were pivotal moments actually happening all through my life, from childhood, from about 2 or 3 years old, actually from the womb, because there was stuff happening outside the womb between my parents that landed on me, on my emotional body, and also because of the emotional body, my physical body, as I understand it. I had a energy healing about 14 years ago. I was gifted this healing, and I went to see this woman, and I had this experience that I had never had before. First off, I had never heard of energy healing or any kind of healing other than the MD kind of healing, right? General practitioner, doctor's medicine, that sort of thing. And when I had this experience, and the reason we're having this conversation is because I said yes to the experience and I had the experience. I was on this woman's table and she's going through my body, and I'm feeling people touching me all over my body. And there's only one other person in the room. And she's working on my kidneys. I can feel her work, her hands on my kidneys. And then when she removes her hands, I feel my kidneys stretch, and I had pain from her hands moving away, which blew my mind. And then at the end of the healing session, she had her hands on my feet, and she finished. She walked out the door. I heard her walk by. I felt her walk by. I heard her footsteps going down the hall to the drinking fountain to wash her hands and to get a glass of water for her and I. And somebody was still holding my feet. People were still in the room with me. And I was just in amazement. After the session, I sat up. I could barely sit up because I was like so grounded. I was stuck to the table. I sat up, and I felt like somebody had unzipped me from down from the top of my chest down to my pubic bone, and I was fully exposed in the front and in the back. And I have never felt that. And she said, "What does dog mean to you?" Wolf. There's a wolf or a dog that walked in here and sat down while I was working on you. I said, "I don't know." And no sooner was that session over, we're leaving this turn of the last century house that this office was in. We close the screen door, and on the screen door, there's a knocker of a wolf. And I'm like, "Look, there's a wolf." She goes, "I never noticed that before." So I get in my car, say goodnight. I make a U-turn, go down the street. I come to the first stop sign. There's this white cargo van parked on the side of the road, and there's this wolf standing in back of the van. And I'm like shaking my head. I'm like, "What is? No, I'm not seeing that." And I start to roll through the stop sign, and it dissolves, and it's actually a boxer, a dog, a boxer, just standing behind the van. Well, all dogs derive from wolf. Wolf is the original dog. And I learned later on that wolf is protector, wolf is loyalty. Oh. So I go down the street. I pull into a Mexican market because I'm in Highland Park, California, East LA. And I call my girlfriend who gave me the gift, and I started to tell her about it, and I started to cry. And I started to cry. And I started to cry. And I was in that parking lot for maybe 2 hours, and she was getting worried. She says, "Well, should I come there?" I said, "No, just stay on the phone with me." I finally made it home. I looked up that school, and I went and audited the school for classes to see how much it would cost to learn how to do that. Because if that was my experience, what kind of experience would I have offering that sort of thing? Now, that's not shamanism. But when I said yes to do that, I returned. The school was teaching classes at a place in San Fernando, California, called Poverello Retreat Center. In 1966, in San Fernando, that same facility was called the Poverello School. It was a Catholic kindergarten school, right? And I happen to know that we have a mutual friend that went to that school. And and that was a place where I was slapped, hit. I was accused of being a troublemaker. I was a 5-year-old little boy, right? Pulled my hair, pulled my arm, pinched my skin, all that stuff. Well, when I went there, and by the way, I was born in San Fernando. So the plot thickens. I go there to take classes, and I didn't want to go up the steep driveway because I just didn't want to. I just didn't want to go back, right, to that place that was abusive to me. I took a deep breath, like right now, when I rolled up the driveway and went to class, and I walked around the campus, and I just kind of like bewilderment. The main schoolhouse had fallen in the 1971 earthquake, so that was gone. It was replaced by a fountain. But at the break time of class, I was out for lunch with others, and I went for a walk by myself, and I came across a red-tailed hawk that was standing on the ground. And I stood there. Now, I don't know anything about spirit animals or shamanism. I don't know anything about anything. I was raised in the city. So I'm sitting there looking at this red-tailed hawk, and I knew that it meant something, but I didn't know what or couldn't imagine. So we sat there communicating quietly with each other, and the hawk turned around, hopped, and flew off into the palm trees that are all over the property. I turned around to go back to class, and there was a hawk feather on the grass, and I picked it up. Now, I don't have any knowledge of shamanic animals at that time, but I kept the feather, and I still have it in the box behind me, in a box of feathers. So, and that was 14 years ago. Well, as I made my way through learning of what I was learning energetically, I started to say yes. I started to channel things that I didn't know, that I had never learned in real time, and I didn't know where they were coming from. I started to see things. I would look into the trees or the clouds, or I would see portals, exit ways, entry ways, from different dimensions, and I was just kind of like, what is all this? And I started channeling voices. I started channeling songs. I sing medicine songs, and they're in languages that I don't know what the languages are. I only know that the languages are ancient, and I speak in these languages as well. Not all the time, just when I'm in ceremony or when something is poignant or it's important, and the ancestors speak through me. I channel their voices. Well, I have a friend named Emma who I was teaching classes out of her studio, and Emma became kind of a teacher for me. When I first walked into her studio, I went there to listen to somebody speak about third eye meditations and that sort of thing. And when Emma saw me, she walked over, and at the time I was calling myself Manos de Luz, hands of light, right? Because I was learning to channel that light through the top of my head, through my ground, through earth. And I said, Emma, and she shook my hand before she hugged me, and a charge of electricity went up my hand, up to my elbow, and back down again. And I knew I was in the presence of something, but still didn't know what. Well, over time, I would teach classes there, and we were developing a relationship of teacher, student, friend, son, mijo, son. And we started walking, going for hikes and walking at the Rose Bowl. It's 3.5 miles. Or we would go to Descanso Gardens in Glendale. And that's where I started to see the portals. That's where I started to really have experience of seeing. I would come across blue heron feathers, owl feathers, and we're walking together, but she's not seeing any of this. I'm seeing it because it was actually stepping into my time. Now, as a child, this had been happening the whole time, but as a child, as a troublemaker in Catholicism, as a brown child, I was always accused of being troublemaker, having a big mouth, go out. I was always in trouble, and I didn't understand why. But I knew that the people were talking to me weren't telling me the truth. They were mistreating me, and I knew that. And I must have had that face of I see you. But as I look back over the years, my past started long before, right? So I learned something about energetics in that school. Heart, lungs, air, I love, I'm loved. Or heart, lungs, air, I don't have the capacity to love, I don't have the capacity to be loved. Now, I had always had asthma, but I didn't know it was called asthma because I had never been diagnosed. I didn't get diagnosed until I was in my 30s or 40s. So I went all those years. And as I went through energetic school and understood the balance of the chakra system, the aura, the emotional field of the body, the soul, I was trying to understand why I had this asthma, where it came from. Well, while I was in utero and my mother was pregnant with me, my father was drunk and would abuse my mother. My mother was brokenhearted, felt unloved. And when you feel brokenhearted, the energetics land on the body and in the body, and they also land on the body of the child. Now, the heart is love. Heart, lungs, air, I love, I'm loved. Heart, lungs, air, I don't have the capacity to love. I don't have the capacity to be loved. I was never taught to put that together. So when I was born with a deficit of love. So my body believed, and my lungs were a deficit. They didn't have They didn't have enough capacity. Listen to the word: capacity to love, capacity to be loved, air capacity. And I started putting things together like that. And then I started looking at people, and when they would talk to me, I knew when they were lying. I could see them inside, and I started to understand what I understood about me. I started looking at others and started understanding that about them.
All right.
And
We need to take a break real quick, Walking Crow. I want to
no
continue the
worries.
story because I do want to know when you adopted Walking Crow, the transformation of Walking Crow. So we do need to dive into that. And I also want to talk about what you do with the people that come seek your help, and how you help them, with your private sessions, and we're going to really dive into that as well, because I think what you offer is so incredibly helpful and healing for so many people. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. My very special guest is Walking Crow. He has a fantastic book called Transformation of a Walking Crow. We'll be talking about the book as well later on. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
All right, we're back on the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane. Thank you so much for tuning in. My very special guest tonight is Walking Crow, who is a transformational shamanic healer. He is also an author, a life mentor, a drum maker. And Walking Crow, you've been sharing your story about how you became this wonderful person and the work that you do now, and that's pretty incredible. And I like that you're able to sense, like, and when someone is, being honest, being authentic, or when they're not being honest or authentic, you can sense that, and that really stems from energy. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. The body speaks to me more than the voice does.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you actually work with people, if they, someone says, "Hey, can I meet with you?" Uh, what are some of the things that you do to help people get through trauma or um, anything that helps them get back in touch with who they are and bringing out their gifts?
One of the first things I do is something that I had to do that first day in that school. I had to go back to ground zero. So, because I'm able to look at them and I understand the physiology with the emotional body, with the spiritual body, and how it's put together and how I see it and understand it, um, when they call me to make an appointment, I actually set up a video conference with them first. And based on the conversation, um, what they look like, if they're obese or if they're out of proportion with bigger stomach or sunken chest or multiple layers in the chin. When I became the healer, I was 238 pounds. I had multiple chins. I don't have that anymore because I have a clear voice, right? I speak what I have to speak. So, in essence, what I do with people, I do what I call a soul retrieval, and I take them back to ground zero. Now, there's people who say, well, I want to do an Akashic Records reading so I know why I'm the way I am. I say, I don't have to do that. Tell me about your mother. Tell me about your father, your grandfather, your grandmother on both sides, your lineage, and I'll start to pull the thread of that sweater and I'll ask questions like, when were you molested? Because that it's all in the body. It's sadness. What kind of injuries does your body have? What is your health history? And based on where it is in the body, I can tell you and take you back to that point of origin that was ground zero where you were wounded. And as souls, we become splintered over time when things happen in our life, just like I did. I was splintered over and over again as a child by my own parents, well meaning people. And I say that well meaning people because they were irresponsible with this responsibility. My father was a drinker. My father was a drunk. He was an alcoholic. My mother was an enabler. She was busy taking care of her child, and she had four others, right? So those of us get left behind or don't get taken care of or are given what we could be given. I don't want to say should because not everybody knows how, and that was the case with my parents. I can't fault them. I can't blame them. So I look at people and I ask questions and I make notes. And then the next step is based on what I learned from them. And they're always surprised. Wow, I didn't realize like people who are molested, they clear that memory here, but it doesn't clear in the body. In fact, this isn't the memory for me. The memory is from the voice down. The fifth chakra, the voice, is where we have the most block. But I say the fifth chakra block, the expression is here because this is intake, intake, intake. And a lot of us live up in here as an escape in our head, right? Alcoholics, drug addicts, sex addicts, food addicts. And I always say astronauts wear spacesuits to live up in here, up in here. Now, I say that in a funny and silly way, but it's tragic because when you're living up in here, what's happening is you're creating dis-ease in your body, whether it's prostate, whether it's uh, 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 a urinary tract infections. If young ladies were molested and they never get any relief or had the emotional release that they were supposed to because they were hiding the secret. They were not telling because they were told not to tell, and they're strapped and burdened with that burden of carrying that dirty little secret about themselves and others, and that's not right. So when they come to see me and they get on my table, they develop a trust with me, and they allow me to place my hands on them and look into their bodies, look into their soul. And I want to be responsible with who and what they are and how I can help them. Before I do anything, I pray, and then I rattle around their body for 3 to 4 minutes. And what that does, that clears the monkey mind up here, the static energy, the voices, right? And it brings you into your heart space, to bring you into the rhythm, the alignment with the heart space. Heart, lungs, air, I love, I'm loved, or heart, lungs, air, I don't have the capacity to love, don't have the capacity to be loved. And then when I'm through rattling, I go to the powwow drum, which I play through the top of their head while they're laying down. And I play for 10 minutes, and I allow them and their body and soul to journey, to leave their body, to go into what we call alpha state. And they're just under the surface floating. And when they're in that state, I go into their body, starting at their feet, moving through their body, moving energy, clearing the energy of their body, seeing what comes up. Sometimes ancestors come up, spirit guides, spirit animals, all kinds of things happen. And sometimes they come in the weirdest forms. Like I've had spirit animals show up as mylar balloons. Okay. Yeah, it's a mylar balloon, but because it's an animal, it's symbolic of an animal, right? So I look for the animals, and I've studied what different animal spirits, energies mean, how they help to heal. So when I see certain things, I already know certain things. And they're having an experience behind their eyes, behind their heart, behind their liver, behind their sacrum, in their ground area, in the intestinal tract, if you will, right? Ground, root chakra, home, safety, money. They're having that experience, and they're seeing what they're seeing. And when I'm through, they come. I want to say they come to. And I ask them to just come to slowly. Don't be in a hurry. Lay there as long as you need to. And when they sit up, we start having conversations, or they start telling me right away what their experience was like. And it's usually positive. And I usually take them back to where things happen. And then I'm called what I call a way shower. I will direct them and mentor them how to move forward and through those traumas, hurts, wounds, and shames, so they can heal and become WHOLE after a lifetime of HOLE, that emptiness of the whole, right? So they can become whole, and they can become unsplintered and bring their little child, boy, girl forward and merge that child or the child with the woman or the man. So they can go through life without the alcohol, without the drugs, the pot, the daily donut.
Yeah.
Without chasing women, without you. So they have a whole understanding of the why. They understand what their why is. Places like Alcoholics Anonymous can help you to stop drinking, and you can do an inventory, but they cannot really take you to the why of why you began to behave that way. You can get to the behavior, but what is the why? What is the reason? And I take you back to that place.
And that's super important, because you need to strip away the layers and get down to the root cause. Because if you don't get down to the root cause, you're not going to be able to heal, because the trauma will be embedded in your body, in your physical body. And that's really important. And I'm glad you brought that up, because we do hang on to trauma, and a lot of people don't even realize that it is affecting, not just from a mental standpoint, but from a physical standpoint. When there's truth when you say, wow, I feel this weight lifting off my shoulders. And it's like, it's yes, there's truth to that.
I mean, I don't like to tell on people, and I don't tell people anything unless they ask me. But you and I have had conversations, and I've been very direct with you, and I said blah 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 blah, and left
Yeah.
it at that, because it's not my place for you to do anything with it. It's your place, right? And that's
Yeah.
how I always say, you are not my business until you say you are my business. I might see you and I might know, and I will be in high awareness of what your issues are, but they're none of my business.
Yeah.
So I don't have to tell you about them and then set off a chain of reaction of wondering and escape into the head. What's he talking about? Oh my God, what can it? No, I don't want to do that to anybody, because that wounds them further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. There has to be, it's, well, I don't know if I want to say the first step of healing from alcoholism is admitting that you have a problem, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
But it does make sense. We're gonna have to take another quick break. Walking Crow, I do want to talk about your sacred drum medicine, because I think
Oh,
that's a pretty amazing a thing that you do, and your drums are beautiful. If you want to show one when we come back, that's great. Have people see your craftsmanship. So we're going to do that. We're going to talk about sacred drum medicine. My very special guest is Anthony Walking Crow, shamanic healer and an author. We're going to talk a little bit about your book as well. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. Don't go away. So much more coming up next.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
And we're back. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Robert A. Lane. We're having a really great conversation with Walking Crow, who is a shamanic healer, a life mentor, an author, drum maker, which we're going to be diving into on this segment of the podcast. So, Walking Crow, you mentioned about how we hold on to trauma and our body holds on to trauma. And, there's this book, right? The body keeps the score. And that's exactly what it talks about. And that it's so true that that we need to let that go, and that a lot of our dis-ease or disease, as people tend to call it, can be healed. You can you can get rid of this dis-ease, and that's really what it is. Now, I know you do sacred drum medicine, and maybe some people aren't really familiar with what that is or what that's about. You are definitely a craftsman. I've seen your work with the drums you've made, the rattles that you've created, and it's not just oh, let's just piece it all together. There is a method, and there is reasoning, and there is a whole, thing that is involved in creating a drum. It's not just putting materials together. So I'd love to have you talk about your sacred drum medicine.
Well, when I started making drums, I didn't know the why of why I was doing it. I didn't know my why yet until I had a continued shamanic experience, which explained everything to me. But the fact of the matter is, while I was in utero, my mother is my 87-year-old original drum. And that's the understanding that I came to as Walking Crow, and I had never had a real great relationship with my mother, and it wasn't because of her; it was because of me. Because I always felt like I wasn't loved, like I wasn't given to, like I was slighted, and I always felt that way because I actually was. The pecking order in my family was my brother, 2 years older than me, and then there was me, and then there's my sister Rita, 2 years later, and then there's a gap of 5 years, my younger brother Caesar. So in the beginning, there's the little prince, my brother Dave, Rita, the little princess in the little dresses, right in the 60s, and the little princess. And then there's a gap, and we grow up, and then there's Caesar is born. Caesar, note that. And then 3 years later, or 3 years later, Yolanda is born. So there's another little prince and another little princess born. That makes sense to me. That makes perfect sense about the pecking order. I kind of got looked over, not intentionally, but that was what I was talking about earlier about. I started to unravel my shamanic life during my upbringing. I just didn't know that's what it was at all. So the drum, the heart, my mother's, once I started developing and birthing drums. Now, I was never taught to make drums. I was never taught to weave. I wasn't taught the medicines, what the meanings were, the number of ties on the back of a drum that hold the drum together. Those all are significant for me and have meaning. The handle has meaning. So we're birthed in the womb of our mother, and the last bastion of safety in that warm, holy vapor within her body, within her canal, her portal, is the uterus, where we're attached. Now, this particular drum that I'm going to show you is deer hide medicine. And I'm going to show you the handle because the handle has what I call a uterus tie. Oops, come over here. A uterus tie. It doesn't look exactly like a uterus, but the basic shape is there. Now, the drum is tied with 12 ties, 12 being the number that breaks down in numerology to 3. 3 is a number of springtime, new beginnings, planting of the new seeds, communication with spirit, spiritual communication. It is direction in the medicine wheel of the East, grandfather, sun rising, fire, fuego, abundance, moving forward, the place of condor, the place of great eagle. Aho. So the 12 breaks down and is significant. Now also, I'll do it on this side because that makes more sense. You see the design of this, try to get it right. You can look at this. I call it the uterus tree because these are the roots down here, and up here is our branches. So this could be seen as a tree. Since I started my walk, I say, my name is Walking Crow, and I am rooted and fruited. I'm the tree that didn't get knocked down by the four winds. What are your four winds? There are thousands of them. So I understood that I had not just survived the four winds, but I had thrived through the four winds to overcome and become this walking crow. So the drum represents my mother's heart. And all the teachings that I teach about the drum with regard to the heart and the divine feminine in the medicine wheel, direction of the west, direction of the ocean, emotion, EMOCEAN, direction of the moon, grandmother moon, emotion, right? That's tomorrow. The full red wolf moon eclipse is tomorrow at 2:20 something in the morning. So I started to get an understanding of the medicine wheel, and the spirits taught me how to move through the medicine wheel and what the significance was with my healing, with the drum healing, my connection to my mother and my reconnection to my mother, and being rerouted and refruited once I did the healing work and the drum, the channeling of the drum birthing, the channeling of the drum medicine that I share with others. Women love what I share with regards to the drum because no other man teaches what I teach. I'm the only male human being that I know of that talks about, disconnecting from the uterus, from darkness to light, darkness to light, darkness to light. And I say it 3 times, always, all on purpose. Now, darkness to light. When I first started as down the path, I had a radio show online, and I used to talk about guru. You know what guru is, right? A teacher. Well, a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions of what guru is, and I learned that gu was darkness, ru was light. So transition from darkness to light. So I would teach that. I would talk about that. I would say, I am not a guru. I am not your guru. I don't want to be your guru. But I am here as a way shower to show you how to move from the darkness to the light. And as I started to talk about it, the spirits started to have me have experiences in the darkness, in the light, and to understand my darkness and my past of darkness, which I had been turning into light. And then my teacher, Emma Molina Iniguez, she's from La Crescenta, California. She's the one with the electrical charge went up my arm. She says, we need to name you. We need to have you step through the veil and do a ceremony where we give you a name. And we were sitting in Descanso Gardens under an ancient oak tree. And by this time I was picking medicines up, feathers and acorns, and I was finding meaning in what those things were as medicine to my heart, to my soul, to my body. And she said, we need to name you Eagle something or other. I'm like, Emma, no. I am not that. I'm a behind the scenes kind of guy. I've always believed that about me. But while we were sitting there, off in the distance, there was this tunnel made out of roses. And through the tunnel, the darkness of the tunnel, I can see the light on the other side. And there is a crow walking through, hopping around, walking through and looking around, hopping, and almost literally walked up to where Emma and I were sitting. And I said, look at that, Emma. And she goes, oh, that's weird. I go, yeah. So we go home and I look up crow because I don't know what that, I wanted to know if that meant anything. Why I was asked to do that, now I know, but I didn't know then. So I looked up crow. And crow is keeper of the sacred law. It's alchemy, shapeshifter from darkness to light, darkness to light, darkness to light. That's the second part of the puzzle. And then when I started birthing the drum medicine, and I started doing the uterus tie, right? Detaching from the uterus, from the sacred portal, which is your mother, from darkness to light, darkness to light, darkness to light. So my medicine is to teach people to be a way shower for them to learn how to move out of their darkness and into their light. Never forgetting the darkness. People say, well, I need to cut cords and let go. Well, we never quite let go. what we do is we teach ourselves to find comfort in what was uncomfortable, because those things that were uncomfortable originally weren't ours to be carrying anyways. They were burdens of our parents, our lineage, people who did things to us, people who were wounded, who wounded us. They weren't ours to carry. So I teach people how to walk through those things over a period of time through conversation and I ask questions. I'm constantly pulling the thread. And there's things that I know that I say that I've never learned. I never was taught in real time of the life, 64 years of Walking Crow. These things that come to me are channeled, and they come from my past lives of understanding as an ancient being. Now, I sat in ayahuasca ceremony 3 years ago. Never planned to. That wasn't my thing. I've been sober for 33 years, but just because I sat in the ayahuasca ceremony doesn't mean I'm not sober, because I wasn't there for the experience. I was invited in for the ceremony, and there's a big difference. So I went through the ceremony. I couldn't get up. I couldn't walk. I finally had to go to the bathroom really bad. And I used the furniture to help myself up. I went into the bathroom, and I fell. And the lady who was conducting the ceremony came running in to make sure I didn't hit my head or something. And I looked down at my body, and my body is pixelated, and I can see all the muscles under my skin. So I get up, I wash my hands, I go back in, and as I come into the room, I'm looking at a reflection of myself in a mirror. And I have long, white, thinning hair. I'm all skeleton. I'm wearing white ceremonial clothing from my Mexican lineage, because I am Tarahumara, Purepecha, and Chichimeca. And I'm wearing a tattered sarape that's old, and my pants are torn. I'm wearing a red sash around my waist, and I'm skeleton. And when I saw that, I understood. Now I know why I know what I know. I am ancient. And I looked over at Lisa while she was singing and rattling, and she looked the same. And I completely understood. I had no more questions about why or what. I just said yes. And I say yes because I say yes after a lifetime of no's. I say yes to myself.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Always, only, always.
Yeah. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. We do have to take one more quick break, Walking Crow. I do want to just touch on your book a little bit when we come back. And then I definitely want to make sure that we tell everybody how to get in touch with you if they want to work with you for private sessions, if they want to make a drum with you, which is a great thing. We'll be talking about that as well. So don't go away, my friends. We'll be back. We are streaming live on the Bull Brave TV network.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related disease. diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense Radio Show with host Dr. Broderick. Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Robert A. Lane. Our very special guest today is Walking Crow, who's just been sharing some incredible, just a wealth of information. Thank you for everything that you're sharing. Now, I know you've written your book, Transformation of a Walking Crow. You share stories of growing up and becoming the person that you are today. And is there anything of significance that you want to let our podcast followers and listeners know about that you've put in the book?
Well,
Is there, I was just going to say
tell,
like a specific moment or story.
right. One of the earliest moments that I talk about is really I've never talked about it with my family. They know that it happened, but I didn't understand the significance until just before I wrote the book, and it came in, and we lived in Pacoima behind the Foothill Division Police Department, and there's a street that runs alongside behind the police station called Wingo, and then it curves into Ilex. I lived on a street called Ilex, and as my father made the right on the curve to Ilex, the door of his 1941 Mercury flew open and I flew out. I was ejected from the car. And in the book, I wrote rejected in parentheses, because that was a powerful moment, because I'd understood. My father would talk to me about your mother doesn't love you because you're darker than the rest of the kids. And he would kind of take me under his wing and take me on these adventures to the park where he would watch soccer games and he would get drunk, and I'd have to get in the car with him and suffer all the way home through fear and anguish if we were going to make it or not, right? And he would always appease me with Milk Duds and a small 7-Up, the green bottle of 7-Up. Now, understanding that the rejection that I was receiving happened through my life because I was flunked in the second grade. I was removed from my high school at Alamany High School in San Fernando. I was kicked out of my Catholic school and then received back. And then I went to San Fernando. So my tribe went on without me. More than once I was splintered. More than several times I was splintered. So I became this sad, lonely little child that felt unloved. And I needed to learn, because there's a lot of people that don't do anything. Needy people don't do anything, but wanting people do something. And I wanted to learn how to love me. I wanted to be loved. I got married 3 times because I wanted love, and I didn't know how to give love or receive love because I didn't know how to receive the love that my mother was giving me, because my father had tarnished my little brain, if you will, my little soul with the things he would say. He meant well, but that's what was done to him. So I can't blame him. I will never fault him. God bless him, my father. In fact, he's behind me to my right. And then I had a significant story where, as a kid in Pacoima, we had a plum tree in the backyard, and I would climb into the plum tree, and I would sit in the summertime, 105, 110 Pacoima, and I would eat plums in the canopy of the shade of the plum tree. Well, years later, as I became the healer, I'm sitting having a conversation with my mother, and I'm telling her about my time in that tree as an 8-year-old, and that was the year that I was flunked. So my loneliness was up in the tree, filling myself with plums. As I'm sitting there, she's cutting coupons and really not paying attention, not because she doesn't want to, but she's busy. But I'm interrupting her space. So as I'm sitting there, I looked up, I Googled plum medicine, meaning of plum. Well, in Asia, China, Korea, Japan, all the Asias, plum is tree of life. So what I understand, when my life was being splintered and all these things, I was sitting in the tree of life, eating from its fruit, and had that realization all those years later. And that's how I start. That's how I conclude my book. That there isn't a 12th chapter, although I wanted 12 chapters. I just titled the 12th chapter conclusion, and I told that story about my time in the tree. And that's actually how I'm starting out my new book, as the forward talk, speaking to what that experience, how it catapulted me into a future that I had no idea I was going to have.
Wow, that is great. So if people want to work with you, or if they want to have you speak, or if they want to find out more about your drum making, I know you also make rattles too. How and what is the best way for people to get in touch with you, Walking Crow?
They can find me at www.sacreddrummedicine.com, www.sacreddrummedicine.com, or they can reach me at Walking Crow at Sacred Drum Medicine, Walking Crow at Sacred Drum Medicine. They're all. I always give out my phone number, but I'm not going to do that here because I have people text me. I'm that hands-on and that personal about what I'm doing. I want to be with you at the quickest way possible because you're looking for it. If somebody is actively searching me out, that means that they want help. They can find me on Facebook at Anthony J. Rodriguez, in parentheses, Walking Crow. They can find me on, what's the other one? Instagram at Walking Crow _ Sacred Drum Medicine. And they can find my videos and songs on YouTube at Walking Crow, Transformational Sacred Drum Medicine, Walking Crow, Transformational Sacred Drum Medicine. And then my medicine songs are at Walking Crow, Shamanic Healing Songs or Shamanic Medicine Songs.
All right. Thank you so much, Walking Crow. We're out of time. I mean, we can talk for hours. So you have so much great information to share, but I love it. I appreciate you spending time on the podcast today. Again, everybody pick up Walking Crow's book as well. It's there on Amazon. You can grab it there. Transformation of a Walking Crow is really, really a great story. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I am Robert A. Lane. My assignment, as always, is when you're out and about in the world, smile at a stranger, say hello to them, give them a compliment, because that small 10 seconds of time can make the world of difference in somebody's life. So we need you to be a life changer. Thank you, Walking Crow. Again, really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap things up. We'll see you next week. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Have a great week. Take care, my friends.
Thank you.
This has been Your Book, Your Voice with host Robert A. Lane. Tune in each week for another powerful and informative episode of Your Book, Your Voice, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.